In this video, we are going to learn about using proportions to convert measurements. This set of notes is VL-733. Let's begin. So it starts off with some vocabulary. Something we'll need to know is the word rate, which is a kind of ratio where two different kinds of blanks are being compared. It is measurements. Measurements. M-E-N-T, two kinds of measurements. Now, we normally think of miles per hour and, feet per second, dollars per pound, things like that. Our next term is called conversion rate. So it is a kind of ratio or a kind of rate that helps you change from one unit of measurement to another unit of measurement. And examples are like feet to inches, pounds to ounces, dollars to pesos. So we're talking about two different units of measurement, two different units of weight, two different units, distance measurement right here, weight measurement here, and this is like monetary or financial measurement here. So, and you could even go from like feet are like a British or imperial, or basically kind of the American standard. And then to something like meters, which is called the part of something called the metric system. So anyways, let's get back to the notes. Common conversion rates include feet to inches, which is like 1 to 12, so 1 feet to 12 inches. Miles to feet, so 1 mile to 5,280 feet. So 1 mile has 5,280 feet. Hours to minutes, 1 hour for every 60 minutes is 60 minutes, and pounds to ounces. So 1 pound is 16 ounces. So use a conversion rate to answer the following questions. How many inches are in 15 feet? Well, before I even get to this part, there are lots of different ways to convert numbers. Ultimately, it involves multiplying or dividing, sometimes it can be really confusing to figure out whether you should multiply or divide. And if you're the kind of person who really struggles, then using a proportion, so setting two ratios equal to each other like this, it's a proportion, it's like a fraction on the left side and a fraction on the right side. Using a proportion can be really, really helpful. But there are also going to be lots of you who just feel like, wait a minute, I'm really good with converting from like feet to inches, or feet to miles, or feet to even meters. And you may feel like I don't need to use a proportion because I know that I'm supposed to multiply or divide. And if that's you, then you can actually do it that way. You can actually kind of take the shortcut. But I'm going to set up a proportion to kind of show you if you're struggling, if you're the kind of person who just does not know whether they should multiply or divide. So let's go ahead and try. How many inches are in 15 feet? Well, we're talking about inches here, and we're talking about feet. So our two units of measurement are inches and feet. And what we know is that 1 foot is 12 inches. So I can put 12 inches below, or some people like to put it next to it, 12 inches. So 1 foot is 12 inches. How many inches? So how many inches? I don't really know. This is going to be my question mark. Is in 15 feet. So that's the question. This is the part I don't know, this area right here. I can put a variable there. So 1 to 12. How do I get from there to there? Multiply by 12. So what should you do to 15? You times it by 12, and that's what's going to get you your mystery number. So times 12 times 12. You can also do cross products, which is like 1 times x is x, 15 times 12 is whatever, and you'll get your answer that way as well. But 15 times 12, unfortunately, I do not know that off the top of my head. I feel like I should, but I don't. So let me type it out on my calculator, make sure I do not get this wrong. 15 times 12. It's saying it's 180. I believe that is correct. So 15 feet is 180 what? It is 180 inches. And you may be wondering, like, wait a minute, did I really have to do all of this to figure out that there are 180 inches and 15 feet? Can I just multiply? Yes, and that's what I did. I figured out that like 1 foot is 12 inches, so I just take 15 and I just multiply by 12 to get my mystery number. So yeah, that's how I use my proportion here. You may have thought, or just so you know, I'm going to set up on this area right here. You could have also set it up this way, just in case you were thinking like, oh, well, 1 foot is 12 inches. So 15 feet is how many inches? So we could have put that x right there. So then you could have said like, oh, to get from here to here, you multiply by 15. To get from here to here, you multiply by 15. So 12 times 15, you end up multiplying by 15 either way. Or multiplying 12 times 15 either way. So you end up with the same answer. So you can set up your proportion in a lot of different ways, and you'll still end up with the right answer. So let's go ahead and do number 2. This is also a distance one. How many feet are in 39 inches? So let's try this one. How many feet are in 39 inches? Well, the conversion rate is 1 foot is 12 inches. So 1 foot equals 12 inches, right? So let's set up a proportion. So how many feet are in 39 inches? So where do I put my inches? My inches go on the inches side, which is right there. 39 inches. How do I know it's my inches side? Well, because I decided to put my inches over here on the right side. So how many feet? That is the question. I put a question mark when really I should probably put a variable. So I'm trying to go from here to here. How do I get from 39 to my mystery number? Well, how do you get from 12? How do I get from 12 to 1? How does 12 turn into 1? Using multiplication or division. Well, 12 divided by 12 equals 1. So you take 39 and you divide by 12 as well. You can also do cross products if you are more comfortable with that, which is like 1 times 39, 12 times x, and then you'll end up solving an equation, a one-step equation. But let's go ahead and, what is 39 divided by 12? That ends up being 3.25. 3.25 what? 3.25 feet. So 39 inches is 3.25 feet. Let's try the next one. This one involves time. Convert 246 minutes into hours. So minutes into hours. What is our conversion rate? Well, 1 hour is 60 minutes. So I'm going to write that down. 1 hour equals 60 minutes. And where do my 246 minutes go? Well, it goes right here with my minutes. 246 minutes. And this is a thing I don't know. How many hours is that? So, how do I go from here to here? How do I go from my 246 to my x? Well, I'm going to go from 60 to 1. How do I go from 60 to 1? 60 divided by 60 equals 1. So 246 needs to get divided by 60 as well. And what does that equal? 246 divided by 60 is 4.1. So the answer is 4.1. 4.1 what? Well, this is hours, right? That's what they're asking, 4.1 hours. For those of you who are kind of confused with this arrow thingy, I'm going to show you cross products real quick. So how could I have done this with cross products? I personally really like cross products, so let's do it real quick. Cross products means you just multiply the things diagonal from each other. So that's x times 60, which gets us 60x. And that's 1 times 246. That's going to be equal to 1 times 246, which is 246. And to solve this equation, you know, we draw that wall down the middle, and then we say, how do I figure out what x is? 60 times x. Oh, well, I need to divide both sides by 60. And then I get the answer. X equals, and then you realize, wait a minute, that was exactly what I just did before, which was to go from here to here, divide by 60. So really 2 different methods to find the same answer. And you'll end up with the same, or yeah, you should end up with the same answer. So whichever method you prefer, use that method. All right, let's do an example involving weight. Example 4, weight. How many ounces are in 3.5 pounds? All right, so we got to look for our conversion. Pounds to ounces, there it is. 1 to 16. So one pound is 16 ounces. So 1 pound, LBS, is 16 ounces. I almost put ounces below, which is totally fine. You can do that as well. Like I said before, lots of ways to solve this and to set this up, and you'd still end up with the right answer. So 1 pound is 16 ounces. How many ounces are in 3.5 pounds? So we don't know the ounces, but we do know we are trying to get to 3.5 pounds. 3.5 pounds. So how many ounces? Well, let's see. How do I get from here to here? Well, you're going to go from 1 to 16. And how do you get from 1 to 16? Times 16. So guess what you're going to do with 3.5? You're going to times 16. Or again, if you'd prefer cross products, because that makes you more comfortable, do that instead. I'm going to do it this shortcut method. I don't know what a good name for this method is, so I'm just calling it shortcut. That ends up being 56 ounces. All right, let's do example 5. This is another distance one. A 5K is a race that is 5 kilometers long. How many miles is this? Well, as you can see up here, there is no miles to kilometers conversion. So thankfully, it says what the conversion is right here. 1 mile is approximately 1.6 kilometers. Approximately. So I'm going to start my proportion by writing that info. 1 mile is 1.6 kilometers. And it says this is 5K. How many miles is a 5K? So how many miles is a 5K? Well, it tells me 5 kilometers, so I should write 5 kilometers. And the thing I don't know is this part. So you may be wondering, again, like, wait, how do I know where does the 5 km go? Well, I put kilometers on this side of my proportion, so it should stay on this side with the other kilometers. You don't want them to be diagonal from each other. You want them to be kind of on the same side. As I've said before, if I had set it up differently, so let me kind of show you a quick alternate way of doing this. I could have also done 1 mile is the same thing as 1.6 kilometers. So where would I put 5 kilometers? Would I put it on the top or bottom? Take a lucky guess. Well, if you're thinking bottom, you're correct, because my kilometers were on the bottom. The 5 kilometers need to go on the bottom as well. And so this would be our variable. That's the thing we don't know. All right. So you end up with the same answer, no matter how you set it up. So let's go ahead and figure this out. How do I go from 5 to my mystery number? How do I get from 1.6 to 1? And this is where a lot of people get really not comfortable. They're like, oh, I don't know how do I get from 1.6 to 1. What do I divide by? Well, the answer is you divide by 1.6, because any number divided by itself equals 1. But if you're not comfortable with that, it's okay. Let's go ahead and do cross products on this one. Let's do let's do this right here. X times 1.6, which is 1.6x. That's going to be equal to 1 times 5, which is 5. Set up my wall. 1.6 times some number equals 5. How do I get the x by itself? Divide by 1.6. That'll cancel. Whatever I do on one side of my equation, I do it to the other. So I take 5, I divide by 1.6, and I get 3.125. 3.125 what? Because our answer is not, that doesn't answer our question to say x equals 3.125. The question is, how many miles is a 5K? It's 3.125 miles. And if they want you to round it to one decimal place, we could say it's 3.1. If we want to round it to a whole number, it would be 3. If it's 2 decimal places, we would say 3.13, because 5 makes this go up. But, 3.125 seems fine. All right, question number 6. This one has to do with money. The average exchange rate between the US dollar and the Japanese yen in 2020 was $1 equals 106.7 yen. How much yen would you expect to get for $20? Ooh, this is weird. I don't know much about yen or dollars, but you don't really have to, thankfully. All you have to do is set up your proportion. So this is one where you may be, tempted to say like, ooh, I don't know whether I multiply or divide. So we take our proportion, we set it up, and I say $1 is 106.7 yen. I mean, I guess I can write yen if I'm comfortable. Or if you're not comfortable with that, you can put the Y with the 2 lines on it. I'm going to go ahead and write yen. So $1 is 106.7 yen. Let's answer the question, how much yen would you expect to get for $20? So I don't know how much yen I'm going to get, but I do know I want it to be 20. So the question is, how do I get from 20 to the x? Well, you go from 1 to 106.7. How do I get from 1 to 106.7? Again, a lot of people freak out when they see those decimals. And they're like, I'm not quite sure. I mean, if you multiply by 106.7, you'd get that. But because some people freak out, because that, I'm just going to do cross products. I always like to start my cross products by doing, whatever times the x. So 1 times x is, that's an x. That's 1x, which is just x. And 20 times 106.7, 20 times 106.7, that equals 2,134. And that's it. 1x equals 2,134. You may think like, oh, I have to draw my wall down the middle, but you kind of don't, because there's nothing to solve. You know what x equals. It's 2,134. So what's your answer? It's 2,134 yen. And if you want to be all fancy, let's go ahead and do that yen symbol. That's how much you get for 20 bucks. All right, let's go ahead and go to the next and final page. It's about scale drawings and scale factors. So let's read through this. A scale drawing is a drawing of a real object that is proportionally smaller or larger than the real object. A scale or scale factor is the ratio between the two sets of measurements. It shows how a dimension in a scale drawing is related to the actual object. So here's a black ant, the actual size. And here's a black ant enlarged by a scale factor of 7. So what they mean is a scale factor is like, hey, everything is exactly 7 times bigger. So it's not like they made the head 7 times bigger and everything else is smaller. It's like everything about this image is 7 times bigger. And it's enlarged. So a scale factor lets us know just how much they shrunk or expanded something by. So let's take a look. Use the map below to answer the following questions. All right, so we got a map. Looks like 1, 2, 3, 4 cities or towns. We got a lake. We got a scale right here. This is our scale factor. 1 centimeter equals 20 miles. So let's answer question 7. If Hendrix is 6.1 centimeters away from Sawville on the map, what is the actual distance between the two towns? So when we have something like this, we start off with our proportion, which is, I'm going to say 1 centimeter equals 20 miles, right? And so it says Hendrix is 6.1 meters away from Sawville. So from there to there is 6.1 meters. I mean, you can draw that. You don't necessarily need to. It doesn't really change anything. So 6.1 centimeters, where should we put it? Well, my centimeter side is going to be on my left side, so let's put it right there, 6.1 cm. What is the actual distance between the two towns? Well, it's going to be something with the mile. So how do I get from 6.1 to my mystery number? Well, how do I get from 1 to 20? Times 20. So I'm going to take 6.1 and I'm going to times it by 20. That's a bit messy. Sorry, 6.1 times 20. And that equals 122. So it is 122 what? It is 122 miles away. All right, let's take a look at number 8. Number 8 says, if Keaton right here, is 3.75 centimeters from Pierre on the map, then approximately how many miles will you have to drive if you want to go from Pierre to Keaton? So Keaton is 3.75 miles. 3.75 centimeters away from Keaton. How many miles will you have to drive if you want to go from Pierre to Keaton? Now, does it really matter whether you're driving from Pierre to Keaton or Keaton to Pierre? In this question, no. They want to know what the mile distance is. It's another way of asking the same thing. Question 1. So let's set up our scale factor. 1 centimeter equals 20 miles. And then we have 3.75 miles right here. Sorry, 3.75 centimeters right there equals how many miles? How do I go from 3.75 to x? How do I go from 1 to 20? It's times 20. So again, you are just going to times 20. And you may have figured it out at the beginning of this question, like, wait, if I just wanted to convert some centimeters to the actual miles, I just multiply by 20 every time. Yeah, once you have the scale factor, pretty much. Unless you're going from miles back to centimeters for some reason. But let's multiply that out. 20 times 3.75. What do I get on my calculator? I get, oh, how funny, I get 75. 75 what? 75 miles. Got 2 more questions. Grant lives in Pierre and will be visiting his grandmother in Hendricks. The 2 towns are 4.5 centimeters apart on the map. So Pierre and Hendricks. Let's take a look at that. Pierre to Hendricks is 4.5 centimeters apart. If Grant is planning on driving from Pierre to Hendricks, then back on the same day, how many miles will he be driving that day? Okay, this one's interesting because he's going from Pierre to Hendricks and going back. And how many total miles will he be driving? Well, 2 ways we can figure this out. We can figure out how far this is in miles and then double it, or I can just do 4.5 and double it right now. 4.5 plus 4.5. So that's what I'm going to do. He's going to drive 4.5 twice, right? So that's 4.5 plus 4.5, which basically equals 9. So he's going to be driving a total of 9 centimeters, right? Oh, wait. Let me write my scale factor first. 1 centimeter. Oops. 1 centimeter equals 20 miles. If he's going to be driving 9 centimeters, how many miles is that? Again, how do I get from 9 to x? How do I get from 1 to 20? Times 20. I actually do know this one in my head. This one is 180 miles. He will be driving 180 miles to visit Grandma for the day. Last question. Riku has to drive from Sauville to Hendricks to Pierre. She checked her map and saw that Sauville is 6.1 centimeters from Hendricks, and Pierre is 4.5 centimeters from Hendricks. What is the total distance she will be driving? Okay, from Sauville to Hendricks to Pierre. So Sauville, Hendricks, Pierre. So 6.1, 4.5. What we can do is find the distance of the actual miles of this and the actual miles of that, and then, multiply by 20. And then, do your information, or, just add these 2 centimeters up, and then you set up your proportion, which is what I'm going to do. The other thing you could do is look at the other questions, which is like, wait a minute, I already figured those out from before. So, I guess I didn't figure it out from that one. So, well, I could take half of that. But let's go ahead and do it this way. Let's add 6.1 plus 4.5 because that's the total she's going to be driving. So 6.1 plus 4.5, that's going to be what, 10.6? So 10.6 centimeters of driving. Well, that she's going to cover in the map. So let's write our proportion, which is 1 centimeter equals 20 miles. And then she's going to be going 10.6 centimeters. How many miles is that? Sorry, I was going to put a question mark, and I decided, like, wait, I should do an X. So how do I go from 10.6 to X? Well, like everything else, you do 1 to 20, which is times 20. 10.6 to X. Where are you? Where are you? There you are. 10.6 times 20. That is 212. 212 what? 212 miles. So Riku will be driving 212 miles. And that is how you use a scale factor. How you can use a proportion. Now, as I said before, I was doing this kind of the long way by setting up a proportion. Many of you will be able to figure out, like, wait a minute, I just can multiply in this question, or I just divide on this question. So it's kind of up to you to decide whether you're feeling pretty confident about whether you should be multiplying or dividing. And I leave that up to you. But go ahead and try some problems on your own where you're converting some measurements